are Geeks Not Nerds. I'm Captain Logan.
'Tis I, the Vince.
Wow, that was dramatic. Mm-hmm. Wow, did you practice that?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, good job.
It's off the cuff.
That was... You don't have one of those. Today's question comes from Mark Hornby. I've been holding on to this one for a while. I went back into the archives and found this and was like, oh, how have we not done a video on this yet? I think this is a thing that we've maybe touched on here and there, but I don't think we've done a whole video on it. So here we go. Hi, Captain Logan and Vince. First thing I want to say Merry Christmas. Yeah, this has been a while. I recently bought a few books, and I don't even know if this was from this Christmas or last Christmas, but I think it was this. I recently bought a few books like Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Firestorm, which is the prequel to the film, as well as the novelization of Dawn and Man of Steel, which strangely expands on the film a little bit. My question is, have you read any movie novelizations? And if you have, which? Do you think that they are outdated, or is there still a place for them? And are they just another form of merchandise with no thought given to them, a cash grab instead of trying to make a good book in of itself, and as well as something that can enhance and inform you about the film? I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Well, here they are, belatedly. So movie novelizations like this one. Most of the time when I've gotten movie novelizations, Vince, it's been kind of just because I collect a thing, and I haven't even really bothered to crack it open and read it. I hate to say. And that's because when I was a kid, I had tried a couple here and there. I haven't done very many, but usually it's just, well, I know this story already. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the same thing most of the time, from at least what limited exposure I've had to them, as adapting most things to another medium, because it kind of feels like it's just sort of the same thing again. Like it still feels like you're watching a movie, you're just reading it in prose. Has that generally been your experience with them, or is it a proper book, or is it just, okay, I'm reliving the movie in my head as I'm reading this?
It kind of depends, because I feel like
is it one of those?
I say that all
Is
the
it a
time.
Depends question, Vince?
It depends.
Okay.
Because loves, it's just too old of a question for.
I want to say it's gotten old, but I'm still laughing at it.
Now that we're all uncomfortable, let's carry. Yeah. But what I feel like whenever I start a movie novelization or just an adaptation of some kind, even if it's a comic book adaptation of a movie, a lot of the time it's just kind of hitting the high notes. And it's going through the movie and saying, well, this happens and then this happens, and then it's just kind of relying on the fact that you've either seen the movie or that you intend to see the movie, and they don't put much effort into it. However, the thing that I kind of like about movie novelizations is that we're getting into a period of time where people get kind of squirmy in their seats. I mean, maybe that's always been the way it was, but I feel like now movie makers are starting to believe that this is kind of the way it is. You can't allow something to be as long as it needs to be. You need to cut out absolutely everything you can spare. And so when you make a movie like that, the novel has its place, and that's why I'm going to answer that question first about it being outdated. I don't feel like novelizations are outdated. I feel like a novelization, not so much based on the film, but based on the script that was intended to hit movie theaters. That's the reason that novelizations should exist.
Don't seem to happen often enough, yeah?
Mm-hmm. But that's the thing, though, is that, like, for example, I'm not saying this is the best one. I'm not saying I've even finished it yet. But I have talked about it recently on one of our videos, and that was the Punisher, the 2004 movie novelization. I've been reading that a little bit off and on, and you know what? The prose isn't bad. It's not terrible. And the thing that I find interesting is that I get to get into people's heads a little bit, and instead of seeing why this character suddenly runs across the beach thinking that she's going to make it, I'm going to wait for those people to maybe see me, and now I'm going to run. Then we get inside of her head, and we see why she's running, and we go, okay, maybe that wasn't a dumb choice based on somebody who's never seen combat, which that's the reason I kind of, I was like, that's okay. His wife can make stupid choices. She's not a combat specialist. And then I'm like, and then I'm reading the book and I'm going, well, okay, I kind of get it.
So it actually informed the movie then?
A little bit. And that's the thing is that, and here's another example. I didn't read this. I had a professor that read this. Superman Returns. You get into the head of Superman while he's kind of floating around the Earth, listening to what's going on Earth. And you hear some of that conflict that you don't actually see outside of Superman's head.
Feels like there's something missing during some of those scenes in that movie, right? Where, like, if this were a comic book, we'd have some narration boxes next to that with internal monologue.
Yeah, so what's Superman thinking? He's thinking about the fact that he protects this planet, and he's thinking about how easy it would be for him to rule it and how easy it would be for him to destroy it, and understanding that it's kind of a moral complication, that he's not going to do that because he can't justify it, but there's a part of him that thinks, you know what, this would make things a lot easier. And so having this is all secondhand. That's what I heard from that professor. Really interesting guy, I believe him. He's pretty smart. So it's like, why is he reading the Superman Returns novelization? No idea. But he likes Superman. I guess that's the reason.
He had a 3-hour wait in the doctor's office, and it was sitting there.
Yep, that's what I do. I'm like, ooh, Superman.
You know, stuff that cool never shows up in doctors' offices for me. You know, I'm never sitting there like, oh man, here's a magazine I actually like to read.
Like, oh look,
there are so many of those.
Fish and Game. I'm excited. I'm gonna read it. It's an actual magazine. That's what my dad reads. It's like, oh look, Fur Fish and Game. All right.
That sounded like a thing that was borderline for me. It sounded like a thing that might exist, or maybe you just made up. I wasn't sure.
This is San Diego. My ego times.
I was going to say it. Okay, well, moving on. So, so two things spring to mind as you're talking about reading novelizations that actually inform the film and maybe even make you feel, if not better about the film, better about the story. Oh, that's what they intended. Maybe it wasn't communicated right. Maybe it didn't really come to us. So, two questions. First of all, do you find it tedious? Or would you find it tedious? I think neither of us have read a lot of these. But would you find it tedious to, even if the prose was good, to read a story or to read a book that is 98% what was there on screen for the internal monologue stuff that informs little bits here and there that tell you, oh, okay, that's what they meant to do, and it just didn't quite come off the page into the performance?
Maybe. You know, tedious is, I think, is a good word for it, because I found when I've read probably about 3/4 of that Punisher book, and it's just hard for me to get through it a little bit, because I'm like, you know what? I know exactly what's going on. I just don't necessarily know what's going on in characters' heads. And the scenes that are put back into it that were taken out, for the most part, so far I've seen, were also in the extended cut. Although in the extended cut, they were kind of stilted dialogue, crappy scenes, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
Like poorly written scenes.
Because I haven't seen the extended cut, or at least I don't think I want to say when we reviewed it for Superhero Rewind, we reviewed the theatrical version.
Yes. I think so. Because
maybe you even made a mention of that, and you were like, "Yeah, Kappa, you like this as much as you do because you didn't have to sit through the other version." Yeah. But I don't remember. It's been years since we did that, and we slept at least 3 or 4 times since then.
The hard part about it is watching the theatrical cut. I'm like, and watching the extended cut, I say, you know what? Some of these scenes they're kind of inferred or implied that you know that this type of thing happened, but some of it really does make the plot move along a little bit better. You go, well, this is how these people found out this information. However, those scenes are just so dry. They're just so dry, and they're not particularly entertaining, and I guess for pacing it makes it hard. And also a lot of for a lot of those scenes that get cut, and I think that sometimes this happens in movies, like important scenes get cut because they're shot poorly. It's just talking heads. So in other words, if Smallville were a big, production thing shot the same way, you probably would only see about 5 minutes of that movie. So, because they're going to cut out everything. But talking heads. And so it's annoying. We're
all with you. Keep going.
You have these characters that you can read the book, and the thing about the book is that you don't have to account for people, being in room. You don't have to account for framing. You just know that they're there, and then they become relevant when they speak up again, or when they do something that's relevant. You just know that they're there, and it's implied that they're doing something. It's just not necessarily pertinent. So when you read something like that in a novel, it makes it a lot easier than shooting it, because now you have to find something for them to do other than just speaking, because the tension is there by action and not necessarily fighting or violence, but the tension is there.
What people are doing in a scene, and that's true in prose and on screen.
Which that's a technique called walk and talk on screen.
Right. But importantly, you want to do the same thing inside of an exchange in a novel or a short story, right? Where you don't want just. I mean, there is room for just a 2 or 3 pages of nothing but dialogue. Sometimes I've seen that handled in a particular context, when things are like really urgent or when we want to focus for whatever reason completely on what people are talking about. That can be really effective. But for the most part, traditionally you put 2 people in a scene together, and we need to know what they're doing. Generally, unless it's a situation like this where you put a camera on yourself and the whole point is just to talk to the camera, you're actually doing something. You know what I mean?
But this is not a narrative thing.
You're washing dishes, or you're playing a Game Boy, whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the thing. One of the things that was added.
Sometimes also what a person is doing. Sorry, I just thought of this. Informs their character in some way. So that's subtext. And layered and nuanced stuff comes from what a person is doing while they're talking about a thing. It's all part of informing the characters.
And panicking doesn't count. That's not a thing that a person's doing. That's a state of emotion.
That's true.
So, but that's the thing, though, is that if you give a character something to do, a reason to be there, other than just confronting the other person for a dramatic effect, if they have a reason to be there and the characters run into each other, even if it's intentional, I know I'm doing this here because I'm going to run into said dude.
Yeah.
Then you have a scene that's worth having and is not likely to get cut from the movie, or at least is not as likely to get cut from the movie. So,
although some of that becomes so very arbitrary, I mean, sometimes you'll get producers and studio heads that will look at a thing and go, "Well, I don't see how this is necessary for the broader thing," because they don't get the sometimes it's about the small stuff, right? You know what I mean? Like sometimes downtime is important. That's that one thing that a lot of people, including myself, complain about with like the new Ninja Turtles movie was there wasn't any downtime. We didn't like spending time with just the turtles talking to each other in their lair, hanging out, doing things together. And you might say, well, we don't need those things. They don't do anything. Oh, but they can. You know what I mean? They establish these characters' rapport with each other and what they're about and that kind of thing. So no, because real people have downtime. You know what I mean? That downtime doesn't equal throwaway scene. It can, if you're not doing anything with it. But I mean, like, in prose, you'll read something and you'll have a person that's just simply, sitting in a room, reading something and drinking coffee, and what they're drinking, what they're reading, what's in the room, why they're there. All those things can inform that character for you. And then the things that you've learned about them might also inform their decisions when they actually have to start being proactive and doing things.
You know what?
I don't know that has anything to do with this, but that's...
I have no
Anyway,
idea.
let's get back around to this.
Yeah. So, I guess at the end of the day, you can have... Some of those throwaway scenes can be kind of adapted into the novel form, and then somebody says, you know what, these are just talking heads, I'm going to give them something to do.
Sure.
And you can kind of use the novelization to take the movie and turn it into something that it was intended to be, rather than what it actually was on screen.
Let me ask you this, too. Would it irritate you if you read a novelization and you were like, and you saw a lot of things that were cut out, or not just, and because I think that novelizations can be really helpful, potentially, or rather, that reading, not helpful, but just reading a novelization doesn't feel like just going back to the movie theater, but you're playing it all in your brain again, which is a healthy exercise, certainly, but it's an exercise before it's anything, I think. Where like I don't know that the novelization really has a right to exist beyond that, unless it is kind of adding a lot to it, or you just enjoyed the movie so much that it's kind of fun to actually get in those characters' heads. And if the prose is just so good, and you're reading a lot of vivid imagery that's described in a different way even than you thought you were seeing on screen, that can be really interesting if you're a really thoughtful person that just loves to read. A reader that watches movies and likes reading more might really, really love novelizations. But what I'm getting at is, would it irritate you if you read a novelization and a lot of stuff is added back in, or a lot of internal monologue is there that informs things that didn't make sense in the movie in the first place to you, and then you realize at the end of the day, yeah, but it doesn't count. It's not canon. It's not the movie ultimately. So what is the point of it? It doesn't make the movie better because it's supplementary material.
I can't tell. I think it would kind of...
Maybe it's a great piece on its own, but...
It would annoy me. Like, I don't know if it would annoy me when I saw the movie or if it would annoy me when I read the book.
I hate that with director's cuts. You know, you watch, especially when
Daredevil.
when more stuff, and especially when more things happen after it. You know what I mean? Where you watch a movie, and for instance, there were a couple scenes added back into the '04 Fantastic Four movie that really should have been in that movie. I think
they should have been shot in a different way, but yes.
I agree with you. You could say that about a lot of things that are actually in that movie. But
the Alicia Master scene needed to be there without the like pseudo porn music that was over the top of it.
Yeah, but like the party scene with Human Torch and his being like asked to join Doctor Doom's group and stuff, that all should have been in there, because now he's got like a real opportunity for change, right? Like now it's you know you can come work for the bad guy or you can be a superhero. He has that moment where he has to actually pick between the corporate life and just doing it because it makes him rich and famous, or being selfless and being the superhero. That's a pivotal scene for that character. And I'm not saying it's a great scene, but it's important. It was left out. Okay, well the problem is, if I for whatever reason thought that, I'm not saying I do, but if for whatever reason I thought that scene would have really informed the sequel, it's not there anymore. It doesn't count. Even though I got to see it, they're not going to call back to it or use it. When you have, this is the trouble sometimes with commercial entertainment. That like it's a narrative, it's a story, it is potentially art, but it's a business first. So we cut things most of the time things are cut because it makes a movie tighter in the sense that an audience isn't going to get up and leave during it, or people are going to want to see it more when they hear about what it is, whatever it is. And so all I'm saying is, so my point is, it's not a complete piece anymore, unless those scenes should have been cut, and then it's kind of up to your interpretation. So I love director's cuts when I feel like we really need them, but where I'm like, oh, now it's a complete piece. But then if there's more in that continuity, like when it's only one movie, when it's Blade Runner or something, you can kind of pick which one you want to be canon because they're all there. You know, you can sort of have your cake and eat. Watchmen, I feel like I can go to the 4-hour cut and be like, that's Watchmen, because like nothing that's cut from that movie, it's simply cut for time. That is a complete piece now when you put everything back into it. So I'm like, okay, that's Watchmen. I don't think very many people would dispute me on that. I don't think it really even matters that much. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, these things happen. They just cut it because it was easier to cut that than it was, important scenes of villain posturing or whatever. So anyway,
posturing.
So something, and I guess that we're kind of on a somewhat of a different topic right now, but it's just that can kind of hurt the artistry of it. So when that's put back into another form, be it a novelization or a comic novelization or whatever it is, like it's kind of neat to see what could have been, but that's ultimately all it is, right?
Yeah, that's great. That's a great way to put it. What could have been.
Because what counts, at least to the masses, is the movie.
To some extent, I guess. Final thought on this for me is that is that it's not outdated. It's not a thing that should go away. Yeah. It's just a thing that it's only merchandise if it's the exact same thing. If it's all third-person omniscient and we see exactly what happens in the movie,
I hate
and it was
that.
all put on.
That drives me crazy.
If it is 100% verbatim to the movie and we get inside of nobody's heads, then essentially you might as well just watch the movie.
You might as well read the script. Publish the script. Don't do that. This one I think does that a little bit. I want a movie novelization to be an actual book, an actual novel. I love comic novelizations. Can I throw that out there really quick?
Yeah.
Those are very valid because now sometimes they cut certain things out and they're kind of truncated, but by and large, like the ones I really like Death of Superman and No Man's Land and there's some others. They tend to leave certain things out, but don't add anything really. So, except for, I guess some thoughts and things, but you read the No Man's Land novelization and you get that story, and in a much more cohesive way than if you read every comic that was published during No Man's Land.
Because it goes through several different titles, and now we have a streamlined story.
Yeah, but what you're doing is kind of backwards when you take a 2-hour movie and you try to turn it into a 300-page novel. You know what I mean? Now you're elongating it as opposed to finding a way to make it more. But
Streamlined. Annoyingly taking your words from me.
Can you stop that? To make it more digestible.
Oh, there we go. Like that.
For an audience that maybe doesn't have time to buy every issue that came out with No Man's Land, all 100 and something issues that you see what I'm saying, and that kind of thing. I would love to see a novelization, and I've said this about even a comic book novelization, but I'd love to see a prose novelization of the Arkham City games. Because I think you could do really good ones, but again that's taking something that, and even with video games, that's taking something that is like really long, a giant commitment, and streamlining it. Whereas this is taking something that's already streamlined and elaborating on it. If you don't do the elaborating part, it's kind of pointless.
Yeah.
And I don't even think that you can't take a good movie and give us more stuff. Like, I don't know why we don't add some scenes here and there to kind of flesh out characters that didn't get a lot to do in the first place. You know what I mean? Because you'll get movies where you're like, okay,
you can add more subplots in.
Yeah, that side character, I get why they're important and they kind of come alive for me, but there could have been they could have had, maybe, if not a whole side story, just make them more relevant to the story, put them in more scenes that were actually in the movie, stuff like that.
In any movie,
and that has been done, and I'm not saying that's never been done. I'm just saying that makes more sense to me. The novelization that Peter David did for the first Fantastic Four movie is like 300-400 pages long. It's like really thick.
Huh.
And I've never actually read it, but I can't imagine that it's just the movie and that long because there's nothing going on in that film. So, but anyway.
Has anybody ever crap to give about Jimmy Olsen in a movie?
Yeah, right.
And it seems to be like, especially in Man of Steel, Jimmy Olsen had a thing there for a little bit. That was evidently cut out of the movie. So why not give people some screen time in the book? I guess page time? Heck, I don't know.
I would love to know what the percentage is of people who buy tie-in novelizations and actually read them, because and this will be my final thought, but we haven't really touched on this, and this was part of the guy's question. Because he asked, do they mostly just serve as extra merchandising? I think by and large they kind of do.
I think you're probably right.
There are people who love to read them, and I have talked to those people, and this is a thing that we've touched on here and there on the channel before. By the way, folks that are watching that are thinking of interesting novelizations that were actually really great, make sure to leave those in the comments, because folks have mentioned things to me before that I've just never gone back and read, so we haven't thrown out a lot of examples because this is not a thing that we've done a whole lot of, but as I said, a lot of that is because most of the ones I have read for sci-fi stuff. So I've read this one. When I was a kid, I read the Independence Day one. It was like that. I read the Galaxy Quest one. If memory serves, was kind of like that. Where it's basically just, like Vince said, a checklist of the scenes with pretty much verbatim dialogue. And what's really annoying is when you have a movie memorized like I do with 89 Batman, and 96% of the dialogue is verbatim, but every now and again they'll change a line for no reason. It drives my head insane because I'm basically just playing the movie in my head. When people say that when you sit down to write a novel that you should think of it the way a scene would play in a movie, that's not wholly true. It's not wholly the way you should handle it, because scenes in movies are all about giving you 100% of what you're supposed to be looking at. It is not as active of an experience, and I don't think it can be, as the experience of reading a novel. You have to leave certain things up to the imagination of the person reading the book, and what you describe is just different. Well, actually, that's dumb, because you actually describe things. In a movie, you're not really describing anything except for exposition and dialogue. You're just showing people doing things. Well, you have to actually show us all that stuff in a book. So you have to find a way, if you're going to take a movie and turn it into a book, to trick the audience almost into forgetting that they've seen the movie in a way. Almost, if that makes
makes
any sense. Where like I don't want to feel like I'm watching a movie. I want to feel like I'm reading a book. And so my imagination needs to do some work. I kind of think writing a novelization would be harder than just writing a novel.
You know, like here's a good example from a book that I again still have not finished, from that Punisher novelization, because I haven't read many novelizations. Anyway, one of the things they did that I thought was
we are obviously really qualified to do this topic.
I'm telling you. So one of the things I liked...
He asked!
Indeed. One of the things that I kind of liked about what I've read so far is that the Punisher, well, Frank Castle, prior to becoming the Punisher, he's now out of the business. He's no longer in the FBI or the Marines or whatever, and he's thinking about the stuff that he intends to do. It's not just the time that he kneels down and tells his son that he's going to have a cushy desk job in England. That's what we get in the movie. But then he says, you know what? I kept this diary. This is the first time we've heard about a war journal. That's in the book, not in the movie. And I don't need to do this stuff anymore. Last entry, stuff like that. I'm reopening the diary and putting more stuff in here. This is now his war journal. I mean, so we get stuff like that. And it doesn't have to dramatically alter. It just informs, because we get into his head and we now know what his plans were that gets dashed. It's not just, I get to be out of the business. It's, I get to spend more time with my family, which is obvious. That was kind of implied in the movie. But so now we know what he wants to do in England. Now we know what kind of job he's going to get. Now we know what he and his family are kind of planning on doing when they get there in the way of enjoying themselves.
And these are not only things that you can do more of in a book, but things that you kind of expect to get when you're reading a thing. I mean, like the pacing in a novel is simply different than pacing in a movie. So when you read a novelization of a thing and you feel like it's the same kind of pacing, you're reading a movie, and I just don't think that really works. I also think that for like superhero stuff and action stuff, it's really hard to do a novelization because they're action driven, and reading action, I'm talking explosions and car chases and things, is not interesting in prose. It's just not. You want to get to the next thing. Reading and some people argue with me and don't agree with this, and that's fine. But for my taste, I guess, I guess I'm highly opinionated about this, but I don't think, I'm not interested in, and then this person kicked over this person's head and this person grabbed their foot, because ultimately there's a conclusion to all of that, and unless I am through, and it's the same thing as in a movie in a way, but unless I'm learning something about the character in exactly what that choreography is, what's the point of it? Somebody won the fight, and now we get to the actual story. Now we get to what's actually happening. You know what I mean? And that's why books are largely dialogue driven and thought driven. I want to get into, as you said, people's heads and figure out why they're doing what they're doing.
And sometimes the prose is just a lot of fun. Robert E. Howard, not to say that he wrote any movie novelizations, obviously he was in the 30s, but Robert E. Howard,
because we didn't have movies back then.
We have, it's unlikely that we're getting a lot of movie novelizations from a pulp writer in the 30s.
No, I agree with you.
But, so Robert E. Howard, the reason I bring him up is that his prose is so damp and wet. Just for the youngins watching
that aren't aware, there were movies in the 30s.
This is true.
And, sorry.
The summer blockbuster was not yet a thing. But you look at stuff like that, and he has action scenes, and like swords sing, and like sinews rage, and things like that. So we get these like fun imagery things that you can do in books that you can't do in movies. And in the movie, a sword swings.
Yeah, you just see that happen. Yeah, sure.
So you're like, wow, that choreography is really cool. But in the book, you have to mix it up. It can't just be the fight scene. It has to be something else. Plus, the way that you describe it has to just be entertaining.
Yeah, I think an action scene in a book, because I know I'm going to get flack for saying that. An action scene in a book needs to be flack needs to be, I think, broken up by and kind of grounded by the thought process of the person who we're following. It really doesn't work in third person omniscient. Really, third-person omniscient is kind of useless most of the time, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not saying that there's never been a reason for having a really cold third-person narrator. Although I think that it works better when you don't get into anybody's heads.
Yeah.
Depending on what the point of the thing is, I'm talking abstractly right now. But like most of the time, prose is best served by following a single protagonist, being in their head, seeing the world from them, and sometimes that will jump around if you have multiple protagonists, but not in the same scene. You know what I mean?
And you can do that first person, but you can do that third person as third person limited.
Yeah, third person limited.
For those of you who are like, but I like third person. Google search third person limited.
I much prefer to write in third person. I just mean that the third person is only telling us what that central character, what that point of view character is thinking. Anyway, so now we are out of creative writing class, and we are out of the how to write a movie novelization from the two most qualified people to teach that course. And we're going to go on now to rants. Thanks very much to the guy who asked us that question, Mark Hornby. Thanks very much. And now we're going to move on to rants. So Vince, are you going to complain today about traffic or about eBay?
I'm going to complain about
eBay traffic. E-traffic.
E-books.
E-books. All right. Are you really?
Yep.
Oh, cool. Segue. Nicely done.
So, in coincidentally, I bring up Robert E. Howard, whatever. So I tried to download this Robert E. Howard book, and I started looking at some reviews, and I started looking at some snippets from this Robert E. Howard ebook. And the thing about it was everything from Robert E. Howard. Everything. Poetry, short stories, whatever. Everything. So, and I thought, you know what? I'll pay however much they want for that. I mean, I forget. I know it was really pretty cheap, but for, $20 for everything in an ebook format, why not? And
yeah, if you don't mind reading like that. I really don't like to read on the screen.
Yeah, neither do I. But I was like, you know what? That's probably the cheapest I'll ever find everything. So,
yeah, sure.
So I looked through it, and I saw these complaints about the formatting issues, and I said, you know what? Maybe I should look through the preview. And it's ridiculous. It's like nothing's uppercase. That's missing punctuation, and not just like that ignorant editor, I don't know when to put in a comma thing, but it's like seriously missing punctuation.
So somebody just
periods and question marks
and wasn't naturally using uppercase. I mean, like
it's like somebody used a stupid computer and just read to it, and it just took every single word.
Oh, that's even worse.
And so I immediately backpedaled. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to finish this transaction.
Yeah.
And but apparently that's kind of a problem with ebooks, and I don't know how they're getting, like, if they're getting better, and I know it kind of depends from company to company. I know it kind of depends from e-publisher, whatever you call those people. But that's ridiculous. That you should have some kind of disclaimer. I did not edit this book.
At all.
I put no effort into the transcription of this book. There should be a little bottom line entire catalog of Robert E. Howard's work, plus I didn't do squat.
Minus formatting.
Minus everything that would make this legible. And you know what? It's so easy to edit already. It's not
it's a social experiment. What it is it's trying to see if people would read Robert E. Howard if it looked like the Fairy Queen. That's...
Oh my God. Like, you know what? I'm not going to sit here and be pretentious and stuff.
The most old world spelling also from a guy who was writing in the 1930s.
There's no punctuation, and it's in Old English. Go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but that's the thing, is that is awful. That is, first of all, I'm giving you money for this, and secondly, that's shady. That is so shady. And Robert E. Howard's not alive. First of all, it's way past the time he would be gone, and secondly, he killed himself. So, I know he's not alive. So he's not reaping benefits from my, let's make this as tasteless as we can. Not reaping the benefits from me buying his ebook, Robert E. Book Howard. And, so...
Morbid rants. Vince feels like he can go a little bit more off the handle when we do a thing called rants. We're not reviewing it, okay? We're just complaining about things.
You know what? I'm not going to say everything's great. You know what? I'm not going to sit here and be pretentious and say that...
Robert E. Book Howard.
And I'm not going to sit here and say that I love high-class things. Because you know what? I kind of hate Moby Dick. I don't care. It's hard to read, not because of the language they use, but you spend like 7/8 of this book learning about whales, and it's annoying.
Yeah, but you know what would make it harder to read?
If it was an old English with no punctuation. Yep. That would make it super hard to read.
Make it harder to read.
And you know what? If you guys want to have some kind of social experiment and see how many people you can con into reading your half-written things, whatever.
Yeah, but they're all going to ask for their money back, right? I mean, you're just going to be like, give me back my $20. This is not what you...
I don't know. I don't know if you can do that with an ebook.
I would do everything I could probably do. I'd be like, well, this is false advertising. I mean,
I would put every nasty review.
It is implied that when you buy a book, that it's going to have basic grammar, especially if it's, I mean, like, you know, sometimes you'll get terrible editors, you'll get, like, self-published things where people don't do a good enough job editing and there will be mistakes here and there. But you especially expect it to be pretty much right when it's all previously published things from an established writer, all of which you know have been edited by...
multiple entities.
Yeah. Yeah, professional editors.
So, professional, non-professional, and then apparently some hack in his basement that decided he was going to hack out all of the punctuation.
Yeah.
So, that's my rant.
That was great. Wow. I love that rant.
Thank you.
I don't even want to do my rant now. I can't follow that.
I guess
that was pretty good. I can't follow reaping... Robert E. Bookhour is not reaping the benefits. I can't follow that. That's...
Oh, my God. It's just... It saddens the crap out of me. Like, if you can imagine being sad, taking crap out of something, it saddens the crap out of me.
Man, well, no disrespect for the dead, but that was hilarious. All right, so moving right along. Rest in peace, Robert E. Bookhour. Hey, I apologize.
Robert E. Bookhour.
I just can't get it out of my head. No disrespect to the dead. Let's move on. So, here's a term I don't like. And I looked it up. I did 6 seconds of research and discovered that this is a term that made a certain amount of sense when it meant something that, or when it, I guess it still means the same thing, but when people weren't using it like it's an endearing or an okay thing to perceive yourself or think of yourself as. Have you heard of the term kidult? What? I don't like it. It bothers me. So I saw a commercial, and I meant to bring this up when we did the commercial GNN last week. I don't mean commercial like people were paying us to do it. I just mean we did a GNN about commercials. And I meant to bring it up when we did. In fact, this was the whole reason I brought that up. I was like, well, I was going to do it for a rant, but then I never brought it up, so now it's a rant. I don't remember if it was Kellogg's or General Mills or what it was, but one of the big, I think it was Kellogg's. I can't remember. I was looking it up and I couldn't find it. But anyway, so I saw a commercial. I've seen a commercial a couple times on Hulu for one of the major commercial companies, and their tagline right now, like I said, I think it's Kellogg's, is "Embrace your inner kidult." Ugh. I have a really hard time not just kind of.
That sounds like something you could get arrested for. I don't think I'm comfortable with that idea.
So the idea obviously is like the inner child thing, right? Where it's like, here are, I don't know if it's like, because the thing is, I can never remember what the actual commercial is, just the end of it, because that really frustrates me. But it's sort of like, here are cereals you loved when you were a kid, and you can like be a kid again. I don't have any problem with that at all.
And exacerbate your diabetes.
Anyway, this is not. This is not one of your rants about nutrition, Vince.
Fair enough.
But what I'm getting at is, I'm fine. I'm fine if the phrase was something like, and I could make this even a grander rant about simply really, really stupid slogans in advertising right now. But this is one of the dumbest ones. If it was like embrace your inner child, your inner kid, something like that, fine. I mean, I have no problem with that. But the notion of embracing the idea of kidult as a thing that people should just be like proud of or something really bugs me, because you put those two words together and it sounds like man-child to me. You know what I mean? It sounds like second childhood. It sounds like midlife crisis. All those things come to mind when I think of that. Child-like and childish are different.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this is maybe like lowering our social standards a little bit when we do this kind of thing where it's like you know what, everybody's a kid now. Like according to the government now, we're kind of kids till we're 25, and you can
26 now.
You can be claimed on your parents' taxes a lot longer, things like that. And we're not allowing people to grow up. And when I say grow up, I don't mean that you have to put aside all the childish things. Look at this room that we're in. You know what I mean? Like I'm just saying that you can be an adult and be a responsible person and live like a grown-up and still like stuff that you like when you were a kid. You know what I mean? There's a time and a place for all these things. And it just bugs me that when we use phrases like kidult, because I feel like we're kind of, like I said, lowering social standards and saying, we don't have to, let's be so loose that we're not even trying to be responsible adults and growing up anymore. It's just we're all kids, whatever. The whole point of life now is to do as little work as humanly possible and play 23 hours a day. And
also,
it's a rant, okay? I can complain about it.
To give credence to this thing that he's saying here, we already have such a blurred line between what's for children and what's for adults anymore.
That's it, yeah.
That and it's more of a problem of trying to bring childish things into the adult world rather than making things more acceptable for people who are maybe slightly innocent and don't necessarily need to know what disturbing things are at the age of 5. So
yeah, isn't it weird how backwards that's gotten? We're like, but go ahead.
So everything gets just shoved into this one little area that's stuff that would interest children, but now has a bunch of adult content in it. And, it's stuff like man-child and blah 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 kidult that make these things a possibility. So and I'm not saying we have to wholly separate them. I'm just saying let's keep the adult content in the adult and keep that little gray period there acceptable for all ages.
Yeah, and the thing is, just as a term, the idea of kidult, of like a person that is physically an adult but mentally still a child, is interesting and makes sense, and I don't have a problem with the fact that someone coined it. But glorifying it?
And they have living communities for people with this affliction.
But it's not even necessarily a mental disorder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that is a thing. But also just someone that is in denial and refuses to take responsibility for their life and say, yeah, you know what, I probably should actually go out and get a job and support myself and not mooch off my parents till I'm 40. And things like that. And no disrespect to anybody who lives whatever kind of life they want to. It's just how I feel about it.
The acceptance of shortcomings are not the same thing as the glorification of them.
I guess, but I don't even know that we're talking about shortcomings.
Well, I mean, if the deal is that you live in your parents' basement and you choose that, and it's difficult to, this doesn't apply to people who are like 15, okay? So my parents' basement, what do I do? But if you live in your parents' basement and you're like 35, you know what, and you know that it's hard, you shouldn't be like, well, yeah, I'm proud of it. I live in my parents' basement. They don't need any help. In fact, they're supporting me. And I just don't want to get a job.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing as the distinction we made years and years ago with the whole Geeks Not Nerds thing, which it's still I love to basically just sum up as we're not good at math, but the idea of being geeky and liking this stuff, but doing it with class and not saying, yeah, you know what, I'm socially weird and I'm not good at I'm not good at social stuff, and that's okay. You know what I mean? Just embracing that kind of mentality. And I feel like that's what the whole kidult thing kind of is.
Yeah. I mean, you can accept that you have difficulty with that, but work at improving, right?
Yeah, but some people take it as a point of pride and go freak flag with it.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm talking about. And I feel like this kind of adds to that.
Yep.
And so I've always been a big proponent of find a way to integrate it into into a into a responsible lifestyle, and and anyway, so whatever. That's how I feel about that. Okay, well, anyway, moving on.
I'm with you on that. I just thought I'd say something funny in the middle of it.
Well, everybody, thanks as always for watching Geeks Not Nerds. We sure appreciate it. We'll see you again next week. And if there's anything you'd like us to talk about in a future video, be sure to leave that in the comments. If you have a cool idea like this guy did, make sure and put that in the comments. And also, what novelizations of movies have you read that you really liked? Anything recent? Anything that's come out recently? Leave those in the comments as well. We sure appreciate you watching, and we'll see you again next week. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince, reminding you to support your local comic book store and apparently bookstore.